And hi, welcome back to The Journey. Today we have a really exciting show. We have someone who is from the inner city community, specifically from the Bronx. And I'm excited because she's an overcomer. She's an overcomer right here from the poorest congressional district in America, where they talk about how hard the jungle streets really are, concrete jungle. Well, we have somebody who's going to talk about that and how she was able to do that on her journey. Again, welcome back to The Journey. I'm your host, Mr. Harris. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Mr. Harris Show. 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 It's called The Journey.
And we are back. And first, let's give a hand and welcome our guest. We call her Miss M. Woo! She is in the house. I will give her the first introduction so we can get it right down and talk about her. But she's an amazing woman. She doesn't realize it that she is admired by many. I think she might know that, but she's also, I'm an admirer as well. She is definitely an overcomer. But here on a professional level, she is assistant director for our after-school programming. And when you come to Renaissance Youth Center, or if you check out our website, www.renaissanceyouth.org, you will see all these amazing, beautiful rooms, and they look so gorgeous. Well, the creator behind that is sitting right next to me today. But that's not what we're going to talk about. You know, I want to talk about, often in life, we often talk about how hard it is to get by and get through, and that struggle is real, and so I know a little bit about this amazing person. I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit. So first, say hello to the audience, listeners.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Mm-hmm. And in your own words, what do you do for RYC?
In my own words, what do I do for RYC? I want to say that I bring that motherly love and hammer, the mother hammer to the RYC, bro. I call it the mother hammer.
That's that smack upside the head. That's what you're talking about?
But in the Renaissance fashion.
Right. I don't want to be reported on this show, corporal punishment. But yeah, she is the one that we all love, and we look at her as a mother. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Bronx, right there on Fordham and Davidson, with my mom.
Oh, North Bronx area.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was me, my sister, and my mom. It was just the three of us. There were, other people in the mix throughout the years, but it was just like my mom and me and my sister in the Bronx.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what was life like in your childhood, during that time? So you weren't too far from University Avenue, right?
Nope.
No. Yeah. So what was it like growing up as a kid in the Bronx during that time?
Well, I have some really fond memories in my neighborhood. We used to play in the pump and get wet at the pump every single summer. It was one of the best memories that I have of growing up over on Davidson Ave. Internally, though, growing up on Fordham, it was busy all the time. There was a lot of people always moving, and there was always stuff happening. But it wasn't too rough for me as a child growing up in the, outside in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
In the home, it was different.
Now, people don't realize it. Like I grew up in Long Island, so Fordham Road brought me to the Bronx because they said that's where the girls were.
Oh my God.
So if you pull up with your car on Fordham Road, pull to the sea, you know what I'm talking about. The lady said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Nice car you got." Right in front of Young World, So I remember those days very fondly, and I'm serious. That's what brought me to the Bronx. That was my first trip to the Bronx.
Okay.
But you grew up in that area, and so where did you hang out in the parks and the streets? Like, what was your fondest? What were some of your fondest memories?
No, I didn't hang out in the streets. My mom was a little tough, so we didn't really get to hang out in the streets. The most I did was hang out on my block in front of my building. And like I said, we used to just get wet in the pump in the summer and play out on the fire escape when we wanted to be outside and it was too cold or, too crazy outside. We would hang out on the fire escapes.
So wait a minute, Davidson. And so did you go to 91?
I went to 261.
261. And where did you go for middle school?
We moved from the Bronx.
Okay.
We traveled for middle school. I went to all different kinds of boroughs. I lived in Long Island at one point. I went to Brentwood High School.
Really?
Yeah.
Suffolk County?
Yep. So for high school, I went to Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then I had to go into foster care, and then ended up in Long Island. I went to Brentwood.
Right.
And that's where I finished out.
Right. And what made you guys bounce around so much?
My mom was a drug dealer, and she got arrested for selling drugs when I was 15. I had already had a child. And so we both got placed in foster care. Thank God we were together. My daughter, me, and my sister. My mom had got busted for selling drugs out of the house.
So your mom wasn't a drug user; she was a dealer.
She was a drug dealer.
So you went from the streets of the Bronx. Mom is pretty strict, keeping you focused, on top of you about going to school, and then life took a turn somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, my mom while we were living in the Bronx, most of the men that she dated were abusive men. And so when she finally got the guts up to get up and leave the one that she was in after he bust her head open with an ashtray, we ended up in Brooklyn. And then I guess, being in the projects in NYCHA and having to make ends meet, she ended up becoming a drug dealer. I mean, that's what everybody did around her. So
that's what everybody was doing. So how many siblings do you have?
I had 2 siblings. I have 1 sister now. I have a brother that passed away when he was 19. Yeah.
And what kind of effect did that have on you as a child? So your mom was incarcerated during that time as well?
Yeah, she was incarcerated. She didn't spend a lot of time in jail, but we weren't able to go back home to her for close to 2 years. And it was a major effect because just alone with her selling drugs, I was almost raped off of that. Somebody came to make a deal, and she opened the door and they bust through the chain. And my daughter was just born, and they took me into my room and tried to take my pants off, and I begged him not to do it in front of my daughter. They tied my mom and my sister up in her room, and I begged him not to do it in front of my daughter, and that's when he choked me out from the back and kind of just laid me out on the floor. My mother found me. She untied herself and found me in the bathroom, my eyes rolled back. And I think that some of that stuff is like one of the toughest memories I have of what she had to go through and deal with because of the choices she made, almost, having something like that happen to one of her kids. It didn't stop her though.
So mom's dealing drugs, and so we can imagine, for those of us who haven't been through that, like, what's that like? So it's like, hey, inconsistent, she's angry, she's probably got some weapons in the house, it's like folk are coming in, knocking on the door for the whatever the case may be. And then I just heard you mention and say that you had a child. So how old were you?
I was 14 when I got pregnant, and I had her at 15.
Holy moly. So you had wait a minute, you got pregnant at 14.
And I had her at 15.
You had her at 15. That in and of itself is a struggle. Was mom around during that time?
Yep.
So mom was around during that time. You have a child. Mom's still doing what she does.
Yep.
Were you involved in that at all?
Yep.
Have to. You live there.
Yep.
You have to, do what mom tells you to do, so on and so forth. Geesh. When you think of those times, does it have an impact on your being, on your mood?
Absolutely. I mean, being a mom now, and from such a young age, there was so many things that I experienced growing up with my mom and the things that she had to do. I mean, I respect it, because she was a great mom. She was a very strict mom, and she had to make ends meet, and she did what she needed to do. But it's not something that I've ever decided I wanted to do to make ends meet, There was something that I wanted to change as far as me being a mom and the way that we were all raised, in my family, from my generation up. We had strict moms. We used to get abused a lot. A lot of stuff happened that I was like, I'm not going to let that happen to my family. I'm not going to be that type of mother. I want to break the cycle of what was happening in my generation and the one before mine's.
Yes.
And so I set out to do just that.
And how did that go? Because it didn't go that well at first.
It didn't go that well. It didn't go. I actually ended up doing the exact thing that I said I wasn't going to do, which was, being a tough parent, being an abusive parent, verbally and physically, and also getting into domestic violence relationships, which my mom was always in.
Right.
boy, I swear that wasn't going to be me, but it ended up happening anyway.
But that's I don't know the science behind that, but I know statistics show that, you know, if your parents were, your mom or dad or your parents were domestic, that seems to be a pattern that young people follow, I guess, is mirroring, not realizing that you're mirroring it, you know, like, so we can bring the audience up to speed. Pregnant at 14, have your first child at 15. How many children do you have currently?
5.
5.
5 adult children and 3 grandchildren, 1 grandchild on the way.
Right. And having the privilege to have met your children, you have amazing young people, amazing kids. And so I know this show is kind of quick. I want to be encouraging to people, but I want you to tell your story.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward. Like, when did the change happen? When did the change happen for better?
Yep. It happened, and I know this is going to sound cliche, but it happened when Renaissance came into my life.
I wasn't expecting that answer.
No, for real. Like, I didn't know what I was worth at all. 0. Like, I was like, this is what it's going to be. This is my life. I'm going to be in domestic violence relationships. I'm never going to get away from it. I was in like 5 of them back to back, had to move so many times, move my family in. I got to Renaissance. I started working over at 146. And people just started recognizing me for what I was doing, like the artsy stuff you're talking about and the motherly figure that I was and how everybody wished I was their mom. Even like having my coworkers be like you're so dope, like you're amazing. And I was hearing that all the time. And I was in a domestic violence relationship during that time.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it was like, I wasn't hearing that at home and I was hearing it at Renaissance. So Renaissance became my safe space. And I started feeling a little bit more empowered every day, saying that I don't deserve this at home. I want home to feel like 146 at Renaissance. I wanted home to feel that way for me, for my kids. I wanted that to happen every day. And it started happening little by little. I started to get tired. I started to get fed up. I started to want to hear at home. I wanted my kids to see me be amazing too, not just at work. You know what I'm saying? So eventually it just hit like a ton of rocks and I was like, that's it. I've had enough. And I was able to find the strength through my coworkers, through the kids at work, through just being at work every day and feeling safe. I was able to build the strength up there and bring it home and fight back.
Yeah. I've just heard you relate to it being your safe space. I always hear you call it your happy place.
Always, always.
And your whole thing is like, don't come in here messing up my happy place.
It used to be safe.
Right.
Now, you know, that
I see.
Now it's just happy because I don't feel like I need to feel safe anymore. It's just happy. Oh boy, all right.
So I didn't realize. So how long you been at Renaissance?
Oh, I'm gonna make 8 years.
Holy moly!
In 2 weeks. I'm going to be 8 years.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize it's been that long. I remember, you know, of course, hiring you and bringing you on. And I knew there was some difficulties in your life, you know, because people don't realize that we wear it on our sleeves.
Yeah.
So when we have challenges in our life, you may not talk about it, you know, but you can see. And, you know, there were evidence, you know, and we would talk a little bit, but not as transparent as we are now. But I didn't realize that you were going through domestic, you know, violence and stuff at the time, that in that life was that difficult for you. Wow, time moves pretty fast. So what do you think, you know, and this is kind of a tough question, right? Because I do believe your surrounding helps, right? So like if you find another family, and for those of us, we often talk about changing your circle. So those of us who are dealing with depression, whether it's abuse, even though you may still be with the abuser, but sometimes you can find yourself having conversations with other people that kind of help you get through that, right? But you didn't only get through that, you've come out of that. So like, that's a jump. That's a leap of faith, right? To say, hey, I'm going to leave this abuser. I'm going to find this level of happiness. I'm going to make it consistent. I'm going to change the life of my young people and give them that. And then along with that, I'm going to find not just safety for myself, but I'm going to find happiness for myself. Like, how did you do that? How did you manage that?
It was just wanting it. Like, I feel like you really have to want to be happy. You have to want it, and surrounding yourself with it every single day it just kind of happens. Like for me, it just happened because I was around it all the time, and I started to want it more and more every single time that I got a piece of happiness and a piece of safe feelings. It just started happening for me, and like I said, I built the courage up to want to fight for it. You have to want to fight for it.
Yes. If I can take you back there for a moment in terms of when you were in that, if I can call it a dark place or a place that you didn't feel safe, you know, did it have an effect on your children? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I see them struggle still every day. And it's why I push them to, I mean, they're all here with me now. And it's why I push them to be here, because the same way that this place surrounded me and held me like really strong, big arms and told me that everything's going to be all right, I need them to feel that too. Yeah. And you say that they're amazing, but it's because of the fact that I became amazing here that I was able to shed that onto them and watch them grow up and get away from all the craziness that they went through, the things that I was putting them through, you know, and that all happened because of Renaissance. You know, I was in it for years before this, and I couldn't get out. And it wasn't until here that I was able to build the strength to get out of that and know that it was going to be, I felt like people had my back. I felt like no matter what happened, if this person showed up to that job, I was going to be protected. I was going to have someone that's going to say, you're not going to touch this girl. And I felt that there, you know? And so having that protection and having that, like that big brother, it really just made me feel like I could actually say, no, not today, you know?
Right.
I don't know how
can you remember a time when you actually felt like giving up?
Oh, baby. I have scars on me now that are signs of me that I did give up a couple times, you know? I became a cutter. Like I had to escape all the time. Like, I did give up. Yeah. It was.
Can you explain to the audience what it means to be a cutter for those who don't know what that means?
It's not that I wanted to be, I didn't want to kill myself. I wasn't like suicidal, but I cut to relieve the pain that I was feeling internally. And a cutter usually does it because they just want to, like relieve themselves of that pain, and cutting sometimes helps with that. I mean, I don't recommend it ever. I hate it. I hate looking at the scars because I know how strong I am now. And I wish that I didn't show the weakness that I have on my body. And my kids, I hate that they see it, or my grandchildren have to see it and say, what is that? I hate that because I'm so strong to them now.
Yes. But I can recall when those scars were able to help another. Right?
Oh.
Right. So like I often say, sometimes we get information that's not just for us. The information is for us to give it on. Wow. But sometimes we go through stuff in life, and we talk about this on the journey. Like if you went down that road and you know there are people down there who are waiting to kill you, tell somebody else, don't go down there. Listen, you shouldn't go down there. And you remember there have been young ladies in this program.
I remember.
And there was one young lady specifically, I was trying to reach her, and I was like, you know what, Miss M, I want you to help me. And you came in and you showed that girl your scars. Yep. Y'all both cried like crazy. Y'all hugged each other, and you turned her around.
Yep.
You know, so, you know, you were able to get out of that dark place and save yourself. But what if she wasn't able to get out of it? If she didn't meet you, you know what I'm saying? She could have had a situation where her life could have ended, you know? So I hope you look at it that way. Like, hey, it's not something you're proud of that you wanted to go through, but you know what? Can I help somebody else who might be going through? Because I've seen you do that not once, but a few times. And I'm pretty sure that there'll be other times as well. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, you talked about, say, hey, my kids are here, you know, bring the audience up to speed as well. Like, you know, she approached me and said, hey, I have my son. I would love for him to work here. And I meet him and say, oh, man, nice young man. Let's get him on board. Boom. Hey, I got another son. He wants to work here. Let me meet him. All right, cool.
Right.
My daughter is looking for work, right? And next thing you know, all of them rascals are here, right? All but I think one is probably coming back. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But
and oh, hey, my fiance.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Love of my life. It's a family affair. I don't know what dinner is like at your house.
It's about Renaissance.
It's about Renaissance. What else? Well, what did you do at work today? It's really like, what did you do down at the meal today? Like we all were down there at the meal. working. But you know, once again, amazing family. But I am so happy, and I've seen the impact we've had on several of your of your kids. You know, and you know, I can't say enough about. You know, we share the fiance.
Yep.
You know,
yes, we do.
We
that's
both
man.
love him. That's
your babe.
That's right. That's right. Right. Love him dearly. Love him dearly. But you know, and it's funny because you're taking this segment away. I didn't think it would go. I wanted to introduce you to the audience and talk about a person who is a survivor. Talk about a person who, in her journey, had some dark times, but she's an overcomer. I didn't know the impact that Renaissance had with you until you just shared it. I didn't expect that to be your answer, that Renaissance was that turning point. It's great to know. What is some advice you can give, and it's not to young ladies, but to young men, young ladies who might be in a dark place. You know, you just said a lot. Hey, mom is a drug dealer, and you're in a place you didn't feel safe, and 14 years of age, you know, you're pregnant now. I have this responsibility to take care of this other life. Not sure what's happening with your very own life, but yet you hung in there, and now you're someone that the program looks up to. Parents here look up to you. Kids here look up to you. Like, wow, that's amazing. What advice can you give someone else who might be in the space that you were in at 14, 15, 16 years old?
I mean, if I could go back and talk to my 15-year-old self, or you know, what I would say is find that circle of people that you know are going to be there for you no matter what. You know, I've always had a friend or two that stuck with me through the drama that I was going through. I think that it's really important to find the circle of people that you know you can trust, that are gonna, you know, share that happy feeling that you need to feel. That's gonna share strength with you. That's gonna help build you up. Not somebody that's just gonna listen, but somebody that's gonna help you fight. And I think that that's the most important part. I think that a lot of people stay stuck because they don't have people to help them fight. Like, you got people that's gonna give you advice all the time, but are you going to stand side by side with me when the time comes? And I think that that's the most important part of it, is knowing that you are going to be safe. Yeah. You know, I think that safe spaces are the most important part of healing and building yourself. Because if you can't find a safe space to do that, then how can you find the strength? Right. So I would say, like, find your circle. Yes. Find your people. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Yep. I think I scared the sound man right now. I said, yes, and he jumped. But, you know, we often talk about the circle of friends here. Givers. You know, I'm not throwing gang signs up at all. I'm really not. I'm just trying to show these two circles here, right? And on the outside circle, we always talk about that being the givers, right? And those are people that you are constantly giving to, right? I'm helping you. You need $5. You need some advice. On the other outside circle, those are people that are giving to you. So you need to have that balance in your life. And you say, well, what's that little tiny circle? That's neutral. Those are people that aren't there to receive or take anything from you. You guys just have such great commonality. Yep. And in life, you're constantly changing your circle because we are always growing. We're always developing. So when I'm here, I don't have the same circle of friends that I have when I'm here. You know, yes. And I like the word that you use, like try to find people who, not just soundboards, but people who can support you. Yep. And fight with you, right? When you need that kind of support. That's some great advice that you're giving. Any last closing words? I just want to say thank you for letting me share my story here at Renaissance. I feel like people need to hear this, and people need to feel it. You know, I think that it's important that we continue to build each other up, and we need to stop listening and start fighting. And that would be my. Well, thank you for being on the show. Can we give her a hand? Absolutely. Miss M, amazing. I can't say enough about her in terms of how I think she's such a hero. We're going to have her back for another segment, so stay tuned. But in closing, you know, life is a journey. There are rainy days and there's sunshiny days. Ooh, that was tough. Sunshiny days, right? You got to get dressed in the morning and be prepared for both. Because it's going to happen, and life is going to be full of ups and downs. But are you an overcomer?
And do you have the support system in place that we just talked about? What does your circle of friends look like? Do you have someone you can call on who will support you, stand with you, and fight in your time of need? But then also, can you stand with someone else and support and fight with them in their time of need, right? So it's very important that we have all of that. Thank you guys for tuning in on the journey. Don't forget, make sure you love yourself. Love yourself. And any love you have left over, make sure you share with somebody else, all right? I'm your host, Mr. Harris. Thank you for tuning in to the journey. Deuces.
Deuces.
Thank you, Miss Kim.
Welcome to the Mr. Harris Show. 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 It's called The Journey.